It's suspected that toxins released from a species of cyanobacteria have killed more than 300 elephants in Botswana. Now, there are thousands of species of cyanobacteria. In fact, cyanobacteria was responsible for the Great Oxidation Event and over millennia responsible for most of the oxygen that we have today. They're an important part of our ecosystem, but a few species are toxic. And although it's unclear as to specifically what species was responsible for these elephant deaths, a common species of toxic algae that you might be familiar with is microcystis, found all over the world and recently made famous after the 2018 Florida water crisis and the Toledo water shutdown when toxins from a bloom in Lake Erie were detected in drinking water supplies. So the easiest way to find out if these toxic algae are impacting animals is to take a sample of water, look it underneath the microscope, and have a good phytoplankton ecologist spend about 10 minutes identifying it. But wildlife authorities actually figured because these animals were drinking from the middle of the pond and the algae seemed to be concentrated along the edges, that they wouldn't be impacted. These species are actually microscopic a lot of the times, and yes, you might not see it. And on top of that, the toxin is released into the water when these species die or when they're stressed. So ingesting the species is actually not mandatory for impacting health. So seeing the elephants walk around in circles should have been a clear indication of neurotoxic poisoning. But now, after analysis of the deceased, neurotoxic poisoning was confirmed. Land use in this area has been changing from wild to agriculture, bringing the use of fertilizers and excess nutrients being carried by runoff to water bodies where these blooms can start to feed and grow. With climate change, many scientists believe that cyanobacteria blooms will be more frequent. And with southern Africa's temperature rising twice the global average, according to the IPCC report, problems are expected to continue past 2020. Let's hope that's all that continues past 2020, because it has been quite the year. Overall, elephant populations are declining due to poaching. Botswana holds a third of the elephant population at 130,000 animals. But it's one of 4 African countries that is lobbying for international trade of endangered species for controlled sales of their ivory stock. For those of you that are confused, because after 2020 Facebook posts, I've realized knowledge can never be assumed. Africa is a continent with 54 countries. There are reasons for selling animal parts, right? Conservation efforts. This seems pretty backwards, and although there's conflicting views on the effectiveness of hunting on conservation efforts, in some cases allowing hunting has actually helped grow populations by motivating population growth and protections against poaching. Against this are the fact that gestation is from 18 to 22 months, and reproduction efforts have proved difficult in some areas for elephants. So let's bring this home for a second, because this is kind of my soapbox. These drinking holes that these elephants were drinking from were dry retention, meaning that they're temporary watering holes that dry up seasonally. Now, the United States Clean Water Act was enhanced to protect water quality systems like this. Those regulations were recently rolled back, and now stormwater and temporary water bodies are no longer protected. So even though this happened over in Africa, it happens here. And even though there hasn't been elephant deaths associated, it is killing dogs, which aren't technically native, but we still love them. So water quality and conservation, they go hand in hand, and protections are critical for human survival. So let's come together and fight for a better world. Our dogs depend on it.